The name of this, whatever I'm going to talk about is called The Art of Aging. And, I never prepare anything because life changes. So, why would I write down a whole speech when something happened the other day and I have to interject that? So I was in Kingston at my friend Yvonne Sewell's house, and Yvonne Sewell was the partner of Mickey Ruskin, who owned Max's Kansas City, just a few blocks away. And if you know anything about Max's, that's where William Burroughs and Warhol and Mick Jagger and Iggy Pop and the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and everyone congregated there, including myself, who was an underage drinker. I went from high school, and nobody checked your ID or anything like that, and I was there every Friday night religiously. Anyway, I met Yvonne 40 years ago, and we've remained friends ever since. So I stayed at her house, and I was watching a documentary, and she has all these books on punk rock, and she's written a few books, and all this sort of stuff about that era. And I watched this Robert Mapplethorpe documentary on Robert Mapplethorpe. And I remember it very well. I lived those years. I can tell you, that's what I'm saying. I could be here for an hour telling you incredible stories that you'd probably love to hear about that era. But Bob Mapplethorpe said one thing in that film that is changing the course of my conversation. And he said, "I'm not going to grow old." And unfortunately, he got AIDS, and he died. So he died at 42. And he never did grow old. And his partner, lover, Sam Wagstaff, who had the largest silver collection, was in the Museum of Modern Art, he died of AIDS too. Everybody died of AIDS at that time. And they didn't grow old. I taught Andy Warhol how to use the Amiga computer in 1985 because I met him at Studio 54. We struck up a conversation, and he got the commission to create Debbie Harry's album cover. And he said, "Do you think you could help me?" And I said, "Of course I can." So I went to his studio with the Commodore Amiga with Deluxe Paint, Photon Paint. I showed him how to use that. And because of that, I have the Luca Museum felt that was the touch point where pop art fused with digital art. So Andy and the show is half devoted to Andy, the other half to myself. And there's a picture in here of my original computer system, which I started with Namjoon Pike, the video artist, in 1975. How many years ago was that? You don't want to know. 51 years ago, and here I am. So what about aging? I started utilizing AI about almost 2 years ago. And I had 3 shows in Forges-les-Eaux, France last September. And it was artificial intelligence and robotics, and I have a robot that paints. So I displayed 75 artificial intelligence pictures and 40 paintings. And when people say, "Oh, so the robot just paints?" No, the robot doesn't do a damn thing unless you decide. And the company is located in St. Petersburg, I was going to say Florida, St. Petersburg, Russia. And so I created images here. I sent it over to St. Petersburg, and they took those paintings in front of the buildings that I made, and they took photos of that. So I call it telepainting, which was a very unusual thing to do. And so the robot does nothing unless you tell it. And the guy says, "Laurence, here's the manual." And I said, "Take the manual and throw it away." Because the idea is there are 10 colors. So who's to say you can't take out one color and put another one? He was astounded by that. He goes, "All right, listen, here's how you mix the paint. You take half this, you add water." I said, "No, I don't want to do it that way. I want it to feel like Impressionism. I want to feel the paint. So I'm going to add a very minuscule amount of water." So I was already breaking the rules before I even started. And then there are 3 brushes, and it goes through a cycle. And it takes about 14 hours to make a painting. So you have to move quickly through this thing. And I decided that maybe I don't want to use all 3 brushes. Maybe I want to use 1 brush for the whole thing. Or maybe I don't. Or maybe I want to switch it. So there's all sorts of things that you can do with this robotic painting. Anyway, are we ready for the video?
We're ready.
Let's play it. Okay, so I'm going to get to the work. So a little bit about my history, and here we go. This is really fascinating and telling. So this image is the Dean of Artificial Intelligence, John McCarthy, who is working at Stanford University. I was commissioned in 1983. So if you think artificial intelligence just showed up about 5 minutes ago, that's incorrect. And he was saying back then, and he was doing it for 20 years already, so he goes back to the 60s with AI, talking about the idea that they could find cures for your illness and then pass it on to the doctor, and the doctor can fix you up and give you longevity, the art of aging. Okay, my famous Absolute ad for Absolute Vodka. You've seen it on the back of 300 million magazines. And people said, what did the ad agency feel about that? Because, you know, the bottle's out of focus. And I said, well, it's very simple. If you drink vodka, that's what the bottle's going to look like. And they said, that's the greatest ad. That's the most brilliant. That ad ran from 1991 to 2001. It's the longest running ad in the history of the Absolute campaign. The cover of Forbes for Reuters. Reuters started their company distributing information through carrier pigeons. And then in 1989, they were using computers. Surprise, surprise. So they wanted to transmit things. So, of course, they hired me and they said, what should it look like? A dove being the bird flying out of electronic hands. And that became the first ever digital art for Forbes magazine. And how would you do anything otherwise? Let's face it. But this was the first. 1989 was a really bellwether year because in that same year, I replaced Van Gogh's irises at the Joan Whitney Payson Museum. They took off the irises. They sold it at Sotheby's to Alan Bond. He defaulted on the painting. You can see that that painting at the Getty Museum. And my art called Nouveau Japonica replaced it at that. Here's a full Sunday New York Times article, Modern Romance via Computer. Like everyone, you have your cell phones. But in 1988, this was a very novel situation. And, you know, given a retrospective at the Fine Art Museum in Long Island, I had all the stuff that nobody's ever seen before. Coca-Cola commissioned me for the Olympics to make the art, and it was for their marketing, their promotion, for product, etc. And they used it for absolutely everything at that time. Okay, Legends of Rock and Roll. This is at the Seminole Hard Rock Guitar Hotel. It's all about the legends through the entire hallway on the greatest musicians of our time. 4 different panels. I did the tour art for Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And there is Britney. And anyone who doesn't like Britney, you don't really know the girl, because she is as sweet as can be. So I did this piece of art with an Olympus 2 megapixel camera. And she said to me, okay, well, where's your people? Where's your people? Where's your entourage? Where's everybody? I said, honey, the only thing you need is what's in your pocket. Maserati art card. Jim was responsible for setting that up with Albany Maserati. I drove the car from Florida all the way to New York. We stopped and took photos of the car in a studio, and he said, make sure you're at the party at 4 o'clock. So we did the shoot. We went on to Saratoga. There's the car. The craziness that's happening in this city. Well, I was commissioned in 2003 Not to do the Knicks, but to do the winning Spurs. The lettering at the Brightline station in Miami, you get off the train, that's what you see. It welcomes you. Welcome to Miami, everybody. Okay, I was a feature of the 113th New York International Auto Show with my own pavilion of 30,000 square feet of space with art cars and motorcycles. Somebody has to come up with these ideas, you know, in that semi-conscious state. I don't know when you get your best creative ideas, but I'm asleep and then I wake up. And right in that zone is when I get all these crazy ideas. So there I am at the auto show. I don't know, 700,000 people came through my space and saw that. I was on the Fireball Run race, raising awareness for missing kids, and that's why the orange jumpsuit. It's not out of prison or anything like that, please. This is a race jacket. The Overtown Courthouse lobby, though. There are 19 backlit light boxes of the sights and attractions of South Florida, and it's on permanent display there. So, God forbid, I mean, if you ever have a reason for being in the courthouse, you'll see the art. I know we're in Microsoft. Mike, close your eyes, please. I was asked by Steve Jobs to have a Think Different ad, and I was also in the pavilion for Apple in Italy, and it was really a magical time. Look at this date, 1983. How many years ago? 43 years ago? I was a baby. My mother had a spoon. She was spoon feeding me. Laurence, here, eat. 1985, covers of Nikkei Computer Magazine in Japan. By the way, that's a picture of me as a little kid. And if you think about it, robots, I love robots. See how everything is full circle? So there I am, I'm maybe 8, 10 years old. But think about this. No internet in 1980, whatever year this is, to be able to convince a company, a corporate company, to have a cover like that of yourself as a kid, that takes moxie, I have to tell you. Okay, the official artist of the Monaco International Film Festival in Monte Carlo. I've done it for 10 years. This was the first one. George Wein of the Newport Jazz, the official artist of the Newport Jazz Festival, with George Wein, who started the New Orleans Jazz Festival. And I decided I was going to wrap the trumpet to honor Miles Davis. And that's what it was. And then the trumpet went to auction. Feature of the Oslo Motor Show in Norway. Making a little Mini Cooper there. The official keynote of National Art Education Association, San Diego, 2014, talking about the future of digital art. Obviously, the future is now. I spoke in front of 3,800 teachers, trying to get them inspired to teach digital art in the classroom. That was my mission. How can I wrap it up when I have to talk about that I launched Tesla for Elon Musk? The art of aging is the fact that there is no time. This was the first ever Tesla car at Art Basel, Miami Beach. It went to 25,000 websites. There it is. And of course, Warhol versus Gartel. I showed you the book. The official artist of the 57th Grammys. Wrap it up. So it's a one-of-a-kind Grammy statue. It's at the Grammy Museum. You can actually see it. That's the official poster. There I am, cleaned up on the red carpet. Madonna in front of me, John Legend behind me. They didn't even know who they were with. The film that I showed yesterday, which maybe 1 or 2 people here came to see, was an award-winning film. Won Best Documentary and Lifetime Achievement Award in Nice. We showed the film last night. So that's it. One last final word, Maxim, and then it's all yours, and I won't say another word for another 4 hours. I created iRobot, 644-page book on the assimilation of robots in society. Then they go into taking over society. They escalate into society. And then the third portion of the book is that they just take over and they're in space doing all sorts of things. So I don't want to take any more time. Maxim, people can look at the book during a break, whatever. Thank you so much. I thank Maxim for hosting this.